Shalom, I'm Rabbi David, and tonight I am going to reveal something that will shatter everything you thought you knew about money, prayer, and divine blessing. And I need you to hear this carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is the opposite of what most people believe their entire lives. God is not interested in your begging. God is not sitting in the heavens waiting for you to convince Him to give you money. God is not withholding wealth from you until you pray hard enough. That entire idea is false, completely false. Wealth is not given from heaven. Wealth is activated. And if you understand this one shift, this one truth, your entire financial reality will begin changing tonight. Not next month, not next year. Tonight. Because the 1-minute prayer I'm going to teach you is not a wish. It is not a plea. It is not you asking God for money. It is a connection protocol, a spiritual technology that the ancient Kabbalists used to draw prosperity instantly. Let me explain, but listen closely. Most people believe wealth comes from outside of them. They believe it comes from hard work alone, from luck, from who they know, or from divine favoritism. They think God gives wealth when He feels like it. That's the lie. That's the illusion. The Kabbalah teaches something radically different, something most people never hear. The Creator is an endless force of giving, endless abundance, endless blessing, endless prosperity. Not sometimes, not occasionally, not when He likes you. Always. The giving never stops. The abundance never pauses. It's flowing every second of every day, like electricity running through the walls of your home. Right now, in this moment, spiritual wealth is flowing around you, through you, beside you, behind you. A constant stream of divine energy ready to materialize as money, opportunity, breakthrough, and success. But there's a problem. You are not plugged in, not because God isn't giving, but because you aren't connected to the flow. You aren't tuned to the frequency. You aren't accessing what is already there. So you pray, you plead, you beg, God, please give me money. Please send abundance. Please help me. And nothing happens. Not because God refuses you, but because begging is not connection. Begging is disconnection. You don't beg electricity to turn on, you plug in. And prayer, true prayer, is plugging in. That is what the ancient sages understood. That is what the patriarchs and prophets used. They didn't sit on the ground with empty hands waiting for wealth to fall from the sky. They accessed the divine flow. They aligned with spiritual law. They connected to the frequency of abundance. And they acted. They moved. They stepped into the energy they had awakened. This is why the 1-minute prayer I will give you tonight is so powerful. Not because the words are magic, not because God suddenly decides to bless you, but because the prayer is designed to align your consciousness with abundance. It shifts you from lack to connection. It plugs you into the spiritual current that is already flowing. It turns on the electricity. When you say this prayer properly, even for only 1 minute, something opens, something unlocks, something activates. You feel it, a warmth in the chest, a lightness in the mind, a clarity that wasn't there before. And because your consciousness shifts, your reality shifts. Opportunities appear, payments arrive, someone calls, a door opens, and yes, money shows up, often by morning. Not because God changed, because you connected. People tell me all the time, Rabbi, how can a simple 1-minute prayer create wealth? And I tell them the same thing every time. The prayer doesn't create the wealth. The wealth is already created. The abundance is already flowing. The river is already moving. The prayer simply positions you to receive it, to plug in, to access, to align. This is the shocking truth no one teaches. God is not interested in your begging. God is interested in your alignment. He already turned the abundance on. The current is running. The flow is endless. Tonight, all you have to do is connect. And when you do, don't be surprised when something shifts in your life by tomorrow morning. Because the moment you connect, the blessing begins to manifest. Now, before we move on, understand this. The 1-minute prayer is not about words. It's about frequency. And once you understand how frequency governs wealth, everything changes. That's what I'm going to show you next. Most people have heard the famous stories of the Torah, the Red Sea, Mount Sinai, the 10 plagues. But almost no one knows the moment I'm about to tell you. And yet it contains one of the most powerful prosperity secrets ever hidden in Scripture. A secret so direct, so uncompromising, that once you understand it, you'll never look at prayer, money, or divine help the same way again. Picture this. An entire nation is wandering through the desert. The sun is burning, the sand is endless. The people are exhausted, hungry, worried about their future. They come upon a vast valley, and in that valley they see it, a camp of enemies waiting for them. Warriors, weapons, an army ready to wipe them out. Panic erupts. The people fall to the ground. They scream, they pray, they beg heaven to save them. This is what everyone expects. This is what we've been taught to do, fall to our knees and plead. But then something shocking happens. Moses lifts his voice to pray, and before the words can even leave his lips, God interrupts him. Not gently, not softly, with force, with urgency, with a command that breaks every idea we have about prayer. Why are you crying out to me? Stand, move, act. The people are still on the ground, hands raised, faces trembling. But God rejects it. Not because prayer is wrong, but because that kind of prayer, prayer from fear, from lack, from helplessness, cannot open the channel of abundance. It cannot activate blessing. It cannot create wealth, success, or victory. God did not want their fear. He wanted their alignment. He wanted them to step into the frequency. He wanted them to rise. And Moses understood. In that moment, he stopped praying the way everyone else was praying. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He aligned. He connected. He entered a state of absolute certainty. And when he raised his staff, not in desperation, but in spiritual confidence, something miraculous happened. The opposing army fell into confusion. The Israelites found strength. The battle shifted. Victory became inevitable. Not because God suddenly decided to help them, but because they shifted their consciousness into the flow. Now, here is the part almost no one ever talks about. The Torah tells this story using a sequence of Hebrew letters that doesn't appear anywhere else in Scripture. A pattern that seems ordinary on the surface, but reveals a hidden structure underneath. Every sentence describing this moment contains specific letter combinations, pairs, triplets, rhythmic patterns, like coded frequencies embedded inside the text. These combinations form what the ancient sages called Shemot Shefa, names of abundance. Not names like Michael or Elijah, not poetic titles. These are energetic formulas, 3-letter frequencies that mirror the energetic structure of the world. Each set corresponds to a different aspect of divine flow: protection, clarity, courage, expansion, and yes, wealth. When Moses aligned his consciousness, he wasn't just thinking positively. He was tuning himself to one of these frequencies. He was activating a name. And when he activated the name, he accessed a spiritual technology that amplified abundance and influence in the physical world. This is why the story matters. This is why it's hidden. And this is why hearing it now is not an accident for you. Because these letter frequencies didn't die with Moses. They didn't vanish into history. The Kabbalists preserved them. They studied them. They mapped them. They learned how each one interacts with human consciousness. They discovered which names unlock creativity, which unlock healing, which unlock protection, and which unlock material blessing. One of these names, one particular three-letter combination, is known as the Gate of Wealth. Kabbalists taught that this name vibrates at the frequency of divine flow entering the physical world as money, opportunity, and provision. And here is the astonishing part. This name is activated not through chanting, not through long prayers, not through rituals that take hours. It is activated through alignment. It is activated through certainty. It is activated through intention. It is activated through the exact state of consciousness the 1-minute nighttime prayer creates. When you say that prayer, you are not reciting poetry. You are aligning yourself to the same frequency Moses used when facing an impossible situation. You are plugging into the same power source the ancient prophets used to open channels of abundance. You are stepping into a moment where heaven and earth meet, where consciousness becomes energy, and energy becomes wealth, where a simple shift inside you creates a ripple outside you that manifests as unexpected income, financial relief, and opportunities that seem to appear from nowhere. And none of this is coincidence. None of this is luck. It is the technology hidden in the story, the code embedded in the letters, the frequency you are learning to access. This is what the sages knew. This is what Moses demonstrated. And this is the truth behind the 1-minute prayer you will use tonight. If you truly want to understand why money can appear overnight, you must understand one principle, one that the Kabbalists protected, whispered, guarded, and passed down only to those ready for it. It is the principle that explains every miracle, every breakthrough, every moment when something shifts instantly, without logic, without warning, without explanation. And it is this: consciousness creates reality. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. Every dollar you have, every opportunity you attract, every door that opens, every sudden blessing that just happens, all of it begins in consciousness long before it appears in the physical world. Money is not physical first. It is energetic first. The physical world is only the final expression, the last stage, the outer layer. The real creation happens before anything is visible. The Kabbalists teach that every physical outcome is a crystallized form of energy, and that energy is shaped by consciousness. When your consciousness vibrates with fear, scarcity, desperation, or doubt, the energy you emit pushes wealth away. It repels opportunities. It blocks channels of blessing. Not because you are being punished, but because your internal frequency does not match the frequency of abundance. But when your consciousness aligns with certainty, gratitude, expansion, and divine flow, you radiate a completely different energy. Wealth recognizes this energy. It moves toward it. It magnetizes to it. It is pulled into your orbit because like attracts like. This is where the divine names come in. The frequencies encoded in those three-letter combinations act like tuning forks. Each name vibrates at a specific spiritual frequency. Some names align you with protection. Some align you with wisdom. And some, very few, align you with abundance. When you focus on the correct name, you are not manipulating the universe. You are tuning yourself. You are adjusting your consciousness the way a radio adjusts its dial. If your radio is even slightly off the correct number, you don't hear music, you hear static. The music is still there, broadcasting 24/7, but you can't access it because you're not aligned. This is exactly how abundance works. The broadcast of prosperity, opportunity, and financial blessing never stops. It is constant, endless, flowing like electricity, waiting to be used. But if your internal frequency is even slightly misaligned, all you receive is static, struggle, frustration, lack. The energy is there, but you're not tuned correctly. The 1-minute nighttime prayer works because it instantly shifts your frequency. It rewires the inner static. It moves you from fear to certainty, from scarcity to abundance, from contraction to expansion. In 60 seconds, you stop begging for money and start aligning with the frequency through which money manifests. When you say this prayer with sincerity and focus, the Hebrew letters operate like access points, spiritual ports that connect you to the flow of divine abundance. Each letter is not just a sound or a symbol, it is an energy, a vibration, a spiritual technology. The moment you visualize or speak the name, your consciousness begins matching its frequency. It's like plugging into a power source. Before plugging in, the lamp is dark, no matter how much electricity flows in the walls. But once connected, the light turns on immediately, not gradually, not eventually, immediately. The energy was always available. You simply accessed it. When your consciousness aligns with an abundance frequency, money responds the same way. It appears quickly, sometimes shockingly fast, because the moment alignment occurs, the spiritual structure rearranges. The unseen becomes seen. The potential becomes real. The energy becomes matter. This is why people experience unexpected deposits, sudden opportunities, coincidence meetings, messages out of nowhere, or old debts repaid right after doing the prayer. The energy had been waiting. The abundance had been flowing, but until the consciousness shifted, it could not materialize. The Kabbalists say that when a person activates the correct name of God for wealth, reality begins bending toward them. Paths open, delays dissolve, blocks disappear. The physical world reorganizes itself to match the new consciousness. And it doesn't take hours. It doesn't take days. It doesn't even take complicated rituals. It takes one moment of true alignment. One moment of accessing the correct frequency. One moment of plugging into what has always been available. That's the power of the 1-minute prayer. It bypasses years of limiting beliefs. It cuts through layers of doubt. It puts your consciousness directly onto the abundance frequency, the same way you place a radio onto the exact station to hear the music clearly. And when you are aligned, wealth doesn't just come. It is drawn to you. It is pulled to you. It moves toward you as naturally as water flows downhill, because the spiritual law has already been triggered inside you. This is the hidden foundation behind every financial miracle. The energy comes first. The money follows. Now we arrive at the part most people think is the mystical secret. But the truth is far more simple and far more powerful. The 1-minute prayer ritual is not magic, not superstition, not a trick to manipulate heaven. It is a precise alignment formula. When done correctly, it shifts your entire energetic field so quickly and so completely that the physical world reacts almost immediately. That is why money appears overnight. That is why opportunities seem to materialize out of nowhere. Not because God suddenly turns his attention to you, but because you finally became capable of receiving what was already flowing toward you all along. The ritual begins with a name. Not a name like Daniel or Sarah. A frequency. A 3-letter combination that the Kabbalists identified as the gateway to abundance. The letters are Aleph, Lamed, and Dalet. Together they form a vibrational code that ancient sages used whenever they needed sustenance, provision, or financial flow. Each letter radiates a specific energy. Aleph represents infinite potential, the source before manifestation. Lamed stretches upward like a channel, drawing spiritual energy downward into the physical world. Dalet symbolizes the door, the opening through which blessings enter reality. When these 3 letters come together, they create the frequency of abundance entering a willing vessel. This is the name you connect to during the prayer. You begin by closing your eyes and seeing the 3 letters before you, glowing with light. You do not force the image, you allow it. Let the letters float, shimmer, appear as if written by fire. See them moving slightly, like energy vibrating. Aleph, Lamed, Dalet. You do not chant them. You do not recite them out loud. You simply hold them in your mind for a moment, letting their frequency imprint itself on your consciousness. Then comes the shift. While the letters shine in your inner vision, you bring your awareness to a single feeling. Certainty. Not hope, not desire, not asking. Certainty. The feeling that abundance is already here, already flowing, already available, already yours. You breathe into that feeling until it fills your chest. This is the core of the ritual. When certainty rises, fear dissolves, scarcity crumbles, doubt evaporates. Your consciousness moves from I lack to I receive. And that shift changes everything. Now you whisper the prayer, 1 sentence, no more. Creator of infinite abundance, align me with the flow that is already given. Say it slowly, gently, with intention. This is not a plea, it is a declaration of alignment. The moment you say it, something softens inside you. A space opens. A vessel is formed. And now you complete the ritual by performing the step that most people forget. A physical action, even a tiny one. This is what seals the connection. This is what allows the energy to land. The Kabbalists teach that spiritual light cannot enter an unbuilt vessel. Action builds the vessel. It completes the circuit. It gives the blessing somewhere to go. So after the prayer, you take one small action toward financial movement. It can be sending a message, making a plan, writing an idea, organizing a bill, listing an item for sale, or preparing a task you've avoided. The action doesn't create the abundance. Your consciousness already did that. The action simply forms the container. This is why the results come so quickly. Once the vessel exists, the flow enters instantly because it was already flowing. The moment you shift your consciousness and take aligned action, the blessing has permission to manifest. People are shocked when they experience this. A woman named Leah told me she did the ritual and woke up to a payment she had forgotten someone owed her. Not a coincidence. A man named Aaron said he received a job offer the morning after doing the ritual. He hadn't applied to that company in months. Another woman said she opened her banking app the next day and found a deposit that had been delayed for weeks suddenly released. And countless people have told me they experienced unexpected sales, donations, clients, ideas or opportunities immediately after the ritual. These things were already on their way. The abundance was already trying to reach them, but their consciousness had been blocking it, pushing it away with fear, lack, and doubt. Once they aligned, once they connected to the name, once they created the vessel, reality had no choice but to respond. That is why this prayer works overnight. Because abundance is not something you wait for. It is something you allow. Most people hear about a ritual like this, a 1-minute prayer that aligns you with abundance, and they rush toward it with excitement. They imagine it as a shortcut, a loophole, a spiritual hack that will let them bypass the inner work. But this is where so many fall, because they misunderstand the true nature of spiritual technology. And if you misunderstand it, you disconnect yourself from the very blessing you are trying to receive. This prayer is powerful. The name is powerful. The alignment is powerful. But none of it works if the consciousness behind it is corrupted. Not corrupted in a dramatic or moralistic way. Corrupted simply by ego, fear, greed, or the desire to receive without giving. These energies short-circuit the frequency. They create static in the system. They distort the vessel. You cannot hold abundance with a mindset built on lack, and you cannot receive divine flow with hands that cling, grasp, or demand. The Kabbalists teach that everything in the spiritual world operates according to resemblance. You attract what you resemble. If your consciousness is generous, you draw generosity. If your consciousness is open, you draw opportunity. If your consciousness is trusting, you draw support. But if you perform a prayer like this one, with the intention of getting something instead of aligning with something, the universe feels the mismatch immediately. This is why some people say, "Rabbi, I did everything exactly right. I visualized the letters, I felt the certainty, I said the prayer, I even took action afterward. Why didn't abundance come?" And when I ask them what they felt inside while praying, the truth emerges. They weren't aligned. They were desperate. They were fearful. They were treating the name like a vending machine, not a frequency. They wanted to receive without transforming. They wanted the fruit without planting the seed. And that consciousness does not magnetize abundance, it repels it. Fear collapses the vessel. Greed tightens it shut. Ego fractures it. Impatience leaks the energy before it takes form. This prayer is not magic because nothing in the universe bypasses consciousness. Nothing. If your consciousness contradicts the frequency of the name cannot enter. It would be like tuning your radio to a prosperity station while the volume knob inside you is set to anxiety. You might perform the ritual perfectly, but you simply won't hear the music. Not because it isn't playing, but because you aren't aligned with it. Purity, in the spiritual sense, simply means genuineness, sincerity, a willingness to shift, a willingness to receive with the intention to share. When your heart is open, not perfect, not saintly, but open, the frequency enters easily. It fills you. It shapes your reality. It moves through your actions into the physical world. And that brings us to the most misunderstood part of the entire process. Without action, the prayer dies inside you. It evaporates. Spiritual energy cannot manifest without a vessel, and the vessel is always action. The 1-minute prayer opens the channel. It unlocks the gate. It creates the flow. But your action builds the container that allows that flow to enter your life. If you do nothing, nothing comes. If you move even slightly, the slightest movement toward growth, improvement, responsibility or expansion, the energy has somewhere to land. One small act done in alignment will produce more abundance than 100 prayers done in fear. That is the final warning. Do not treat this prayer like a magic wand. Treat it as a partnership, a dance, a connection between your inner alignment and your outer steps. When those two meet, abundance becomes natural, effortless, inevitable. But if you approach the ritual from ego, from entitlement, from the hunger for shortcuts, the door remains closed, not because it is locked, but because it opens only from the inside. There are deeper names beyond Aleph, Lamed, Daled, names that shape long-term wealth, sustained prosperity, generational blessing. Names used by the sages not just for sudden breakthroughs, but for building a lifetime of growth, opportunity, and spiritual fulfillment. And soon, when you're ready, I'll reveal them.